Hello, and welcome to Everything is Spooky in the Dark, the podcast for WanderingCrystal.com. I'm your host, Crystal, and today we'll be talking about spending the night in the Edinburgh Vaults. The city of Edinburgh oozes with creepy historic events, many of which have paranormal backstories. Once upon a time, Scotland's capital decided to throw an amazing festival called Mary King's Ghost Fest. This festival featured several spectral events, including trips to the Edinburgh Underground Vaults, Mary King's Close, which is my personal favorite, and overnight vigils in the Blair Street Vaults and Damnation Alley that included ghostly storytelling, seances, and more. The newly undiscovered Damnation Alley, part of the dark and eerie Edinburgh Vaults, was to play a part in this year's festivities for the first time. As an avid fan of the underground vaults hidden below the streets of Edinburgh's historic Royal Mile, I was eager to explore the new section that had yet to be investigated by the other vault fans in the city. The tour began at 10 p.m. and I was incredibly excited. I went along with my friend Jamie, who was interested in the creepy and macabre as well. A group of around 20 of us gathered next to the City of the Dead tour sign close to St. Giles Cathedral, and we eagerly started chatting away amongst ourselves. We soon discovered that none of us had been on an overnight vigil in any of the vaults before. Shortly before the tour started, we were joined by a host and two paranormal mediums. These paranormal mediums could supposedly talk to the dead, so that was pretty exciting for us. So we didn't really know what was in store for the evening, and it didn't take us long to realize this wasn't our normal Edinburgh Underground Vault tour. Ordinary tours usually feature an incredible storytelling guide who will lead you down to the vaults by telling you stories along the way of the real history and the real ghosts that call the Edinburgh Vaults their home. The tour I went on was a paranormal experience which included an EVP recorder, a seance, and listening to the paranormal medium speak about what may have been hiding in the vaults. As we made our way down toward the dark tunnels, our tour guide locked the door behind us with a resonating boom. From then, we were locked in for the night, unsure of what events would unfold. There was electricity in the air filled with uncertainty, excitement, and a little bit of fear. I could feel the change as my eyes adjusted to the candlelit vaulted rooms buried deep beneath the streets of a bustling late-night Edinburgh. At the time of my tour, which was in 2010, Damnation Alley consisted of two vaulted rooms and an area of rubble where the walls were being torn down to reveal additional vaults and underground tunnels filled with even more history and secrets. Our group gathered around in the first dark vault, lit only by a single candle. I could smell the musky dust scent that encapsulated the air of the newly discovered vault. That's when we were introduced to our two paranormal tour guides. We'd be conducting a few paranormal investigations, such as asking any present entities questions with the EVP recorder and taking part in a seance later in the evening to see if we could make contact with anybody. I'm not necessarily a believer in the paranormal, but I do love all stories shrouded in history, mystery, and the macabre, which includes ghostly stories. Plus, there's just something about a good ghost story that just sends chills up my spine, and it scares me enough to spend the night with the lights on because I'm too scared to sleep. And although I've had unexplained ghostly experiences in my past, I'm still very much a skeptic, but not so much that it hinders my addiction to the paranormal. So we began our first EVP session of the evening. Unlike a normal recording device that records all sounds, ours would only pick up on specific sounds purposely made, including those from a paranormal source. We all stood quietly and individually began asking questions. Is there anyone here with us? We all stood in utter silence, not even moving for the fear that the rustle of our clothes might accidentally be picked up by the recording. Does anyone want to speak to us? If someone is here with us, please make a sound so we are aware of your presence. Silence. Nothing but another long pause from our group as we waited for a sign. A few more questions were asked, followed by long silences from our group waiting for answers. Answers that would only be picked up by the EVP recording if anything paranormal decided to speak up. The recording was played back, this time skipping the long, drawn-out pauses that filled the room when we originally asked the questions. There was nothing. No one wanted to talk to us. We lingered around for a bit while the paranormal mediums walked around, trying to pick up any entity willing to contact them that evening. At this time, I decided to take the opportunity to speak with one of the paranormal mediums and ask him a few questions about my past paranormal experiences. Because at this time, while I did love the paranormal stories and I did have a lot of experiences, I was still super skeptic, especially about the particular paranormal experiences that I had that I wanted to question if they were real or if they were just in my head. I wanted answers, so I went up to one of the paranormal mediums. I told him my story, which I will tell you now. When I was 16, I was living in an apartment building. The apartment building had two sides separated by a foyer and a set of stairs in the middle. I lived on the right side, so usually I came up the side door and entered my apartment with no problems. I was living on the 3rd floor, and I definitely wasn't alone. Directly across the hall was another door, another neighbor, and then just down the end of the hall, near the door leading to the foyer, was another neighbor. This is the door that gave me issues. Now, I want to explain that what I saw was what seemed like 3 ghosts. However, I never actually saw anything with my eyes, which is why I wasn't really sure if it was just in my head or if I was actually seeing an entity. The first ghost, he just sat on the couch in my apartment, right in the middle, and did nothing. He just sat there all the time. It was like I didn't even exist. He was fine. The second ghost, he was another man, and he just came and go as he pleased. He would walk in and out of the bathroom and the kitchen and my bedroom, and he would just leave. Again, not a problem. But the third ghost, the ghost by the door at the end of the hallway, she scared me. She scared me so much that I would never go down that way. I would never take the stairs. And if I had to come up that way and pass her, I would run. And I was 16. I wasn't a child. So let me describe to you what this woman looked like. This woman was a blonde. Her hair went down past her shoulders, but the color wasn't a nice blonde. It was like the color of straw, and it looked really stringy. She was shorter than me, and she had really mean blue eyes that she would just stare. She would stare at you like she hated you and she wanted to rip you apart. She would scowl at you and follow you with her eyes as you walked past her. She was mean, she was scary, and she was intimidating. This ghost, however, she couldn't move. It was like she was stuck in the wall and she couldn't escape. Maybe that's why she was so mad. Either way, I would never ever pass her unless I absolutely had to. So I decided to ask the psychic medium if this was a real ghost or if it was just in my head, because I didn't actually see anything with my eyes, which is why I don't really believe it's true. It was just feelings that I got and just sort of a visual, so who knows what was going on. And you want to know what he said? Get ready for it. He did not answer my question. At all. Instead of answering my question directly, he just said that there were things out there, there were creatures and things in the world that people didn't even know about, scary things and demons and blah, blah, blah. And that was it. That's how he answered my question, which was not helpful. So to this day, I'm skeptics. I don't believe in ghosts, so clearly it was just in my head, but it's just a little unusual. But back to the evening. One of the paranormal mediums, I'm pretty sure it was the guy that I was speaking to, I was asking questions, he mentioned that he felt someone in the vaults named Peter. He said that this man had potentially died in the Edinburgh Vaults. He tried to get more information, but Peter wasn't very forthcoming with his words. So later on, after he had made connection with Peter, but he couldn't really get any more information out of him, we decided to have a seance. We wanted to connect with the dead with the help of our mediums. We entered the second vault, which was larger, but just as damp and dark as the first one, and we all stood in a circle and held hands. One of the rules was to never break the circle, no matter what. If someone needed to stop, we'd end the session properly before we stopped holding hands. With this knowledge in mind, we've all formed a very large circle, turned on the EVP, and locked hands, thus forming one large, unbreakable circle of energy. A silence fell upon us as the seance began. The mediums and paranormal investigators did all of the talking, once again using our group energy to try and give the dead more power to be able to speak to us. The questions were similar to the first EVP session prior to the seance, except for we had the addition of one very specific question that one of our mediums asked. He said, "I don't feel Peter's energy anymore. Where is Peter?" We were all silent when my back started to hurt and I really wanted to let go of my partner's hand so I could relieve myself of the pain. I silently told myself just to wait it out. The seance would be over soon and I could stretch. People started to get a bit restless, sore, and complaints of wanting to finish the seance filled the room. I can't recall the exact words that were used to close the circle, but once complete, we were able to let go of each other's hands. I immediately felt better. My back pain left, and I was glad it was over. So after the seance, the EVP recording was played back. Except this time we heard answers. Occasionally a question was met with what sounded like a dog barking, which was eerie since we were all completely silent. But the creepiest thing, and I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it right now, was the answer to, "Where is Peter?" A very quiet and soft voice answered, "Who is Peter?" It was so quiet. Everyone took a turn holding the EVP recorder up to their ear so they could hear the ghostly voice. I still can't explain what caused the sound because I was present in the silent group the entire time. The paranormal team, however, was more interested in the barking that appeared on the EVP recorder, as apparently one of the signs of a poltergeist or a demon is the sound of dog-like barking. It was at this point that our experience was coming to an end. The possibility of a poltergeist left our paranormal investigative team eager to investigate further, and it made for an incredible night for us. I'm so glad that Edinburgh embraces its dark past and creates so many different opportunities to really experience and step foot into Edinburgh history. It's probably why it's one of my most favorite cities for dark travel. If you had the opportunity to spend the night in the Edinburgh Vaults, would you? Since I did already, I 100% would do it again. It was a lot of fun, and there's just something great about being scared out of your mind. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening to Everything is Spooky in the Dark, the podcast for wanderingcrystal.com. Bye.